Another company goes all in on AI, and it did not go well. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Dave is Not AI, the channel where we take a critical, no-nonsense look at artificial intelligence. I'm Dave Linthicum, an AI expert with over 30 years of experience in the enterprise AI field. I've authored or co-authored 17 books on technology topics. I have dozens of courses on LinkedIn Learning, and I'm a top AI influencer and thought leader. Here we delve into what's working, what's not, and what's just plain ridiculous when it comes to AI, providing honest and objective analysis. If that interests you, please subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started. So this is a story, it was a few weeks ago, but it's another instance of where a company probably did a knee-jerk dive into AI and it didn't go well for them. So in recent years, the integration of artificial intelligence in various industries, this has sparked both excitement and concern among employees and customers alike. And so we're seeing lots of instances where the CEOs are going all in on AI. They're talking about how much money they're going to save on the reduction of staff. They're talking about, the ability to kind of pump up their profits based on leveraging this technology. And they don't really think through it. So they don't have an understanding of how this stuff is actually going to work. And it ends up backfiring on them. Here's another story about that. So Duolingo, I believe that's how it's spelled, which is a education company. CEO Luis von Ahn recently unveiled a bold plan to pivot the company toward an AI-first model, intending to leverage automation to enhance productivity. So here we kind of go again. In other words, they want to move to AI, and instead of pushing out a detailed plan on how this is going to work and how it's going to impact their employees, and how it's going to impact the customers, they just kind of say it. In other words, we're going to go all in on AI, and that causes fear, uncertainty, and doubt, as we saw, in the past case studies that we covered on this channel, including Hertz, and we're going to see others as well. And the reality is, you don't have to do that. You can do this in a smart way. That's going to bring more value back to your business and more value to your employees and more value to your customers. And that's what you want. You don't want to just dive on a technology trend and hope for the best. So as you may have guessed, this announcement was met with swift backlash as both employees and customers worried about the implications of AI replacing human roles. The situation highlights the critical need for CEOs to be attuned to market settlements and employee anxieties when introducing transformative change within their organization. So Duolingo is an education company, as I mentioned earlier, that provides a language learning platform through its mobile app and website. So they're a digital learning platform. And so let's talk a bit about what they did wrong and how maybe you can avoid repeating the same mistake within your organization. So first and foremost, this backlash was predictable. Obviously, they didn't check with somebody who understood how the market would react to this before they went ahead and made this announcement. So given the widespread apprehension around AI, and people are skittish about it right now, replacing jobs across various industries, it's not surprising that the CEO faced significant backlash for suggesting an AI-first approach. And the fear of job loss is pervasive out there, as many employees and consumers are already anxious about technology outpacing human roles in the workplace. So this is one of those things where he didn't understand the market, his customer base, and his employee base before he made this announcement. And he even, to his credit, by the way, mentioned in the magazine, and you can see the article that's linked in the description is where I get this news story from, admitted he didn't expect the backlash. And so instead of doubling down on dumb, he pulled it back, and we'll talk a bit about that as well. So again, understanding the market sentiment is critical. CIOs must attune themselves to the prevailing market and society sentiments around technology and automation before they open their mouth. So by overlooking the fears of the employees and customers, the CEO exemplifies a disconnect that can alienate stakeholders, and ultimately through market analysis he should have done before he made this announcement, he could have found out the transition was more sensitive than he thought it was going to be. And even though if plans were moving to AI, that's obviously a transition that has to happen over a long period of time, and the ability to have a more comprehensive plan, how much you're going to spend, how much you're going to gain, how it's going to affect employees, how it's going to affect customers. is the way you do this. You just come out with AI first, just like in the past, we had cloud first and SOA first, and whatever technology trend first that CIOs would proclaim, and it never ends up to be that easy. In other words, in the cloud first stuff, now we're in 2025 doing a lot of repatriation, basically pushing data sets and workloads back to the on-prem systems where they initially came from, because they overused a exciting concept, a concept they thought was going to be cool, a concept they thought was going to save them money, without knowing yet what they're talking about. And this is an example of that occurring here. So as with all of this stuff, communications is key. The way a message is communicated can significantly affect public perception. And the CEO's initial announcement lacked the nuance needed to reassure employees that their roles would not be eliminated. A more strategic communication plan emphasizing AI as a tool rather than a replacement could have mitigated the backlash. So people are protective of what they do each and every day, and emotionally so, and for good reason. In other words, the people who worked at the company, it's their livelihood. Just like, people who worked at other companies where AI was, an example with the Amazon case study we went through with the other video, and I'll go ahead and link it here, where you just go ahead and, make veiled threats to their employment at the company, whether you think you're doing it or not, because, I've been a CEO 3 times, and let me tell you, they hang on every word you say as related to the company's future and their employment at the company, things like that. So you have to be very careful. You don't lie, but also you don't say dumb things, things with hyperbole. They're going to be interpreted in different ways, and that's kind of what happened here. So next would be a comparative analysis with peer groups. So the other tech CEOs have also been candid about AI's implications for employment, as we've seen in the Amazon case we discussed in our last video. However, they often introduce changes with more gradual approach. That's the best way to do it. In other words, an example of Klarna, which reduced its workforce due to AI integration, highlights that without a balanced approach, companies can face fierce criticism and loss of customer loyalty. And so we'll cover that case study here at some point as well. Another instance where it was pushed out, the idea, in a very hyped way without a lot of thinking and planning about it. And it blew back in the face of the leadership at those companies. And they lost employees, certainly lost the confidence of employees. But worse, they're losing customers. People think, well, why are the customers leaving? If they view a company as moving in directions they don't agree with, such as moving many of the existing roles into AI, and they even view the quality of the product, in this case, the quality of the learning product may go down, then they're going to exit. And I think that's what we saw within this case study, and we're seeing that with most case studies as well. And we're starting to see common patterns where the opportunity for AI is there, the CEOs jump on it. They put too much faith and confidence in it as something that's going to be wholly transformative for them. They get excited about it, probably with low information excitement, push out the idea in a way that threatens jobs and also alerts customers as to incoming issues with that organization, and it blows back, and they don't know why. And it's funny that they don't know why. They should know why, but I'm just seeing it over and over again. So how do you do this? Well, you have to have a thoughtful transition plan. Who'd have thunk that? So these guys played stupid games and won stupid prizes, emphasizing technology as a complement to human skills rather than a substitute can foster a collaborative atmosphere. I can't say that enough. In other words, AI is awesome technology. I've been working with it my entire career. It's game-changing in terms of how it can be leveraged for businesses as a true force multiplier. But it's really there to add value to people, both employees and customers. And if you use it correctly and you message it correctly, it can do just that. And people are just kind of missing the core value of what this technology can bring. They're using knee-jerk movements into the market, pushing their AI technology out as quickly as they can without thinking about how that's going to impact things. And they're confused, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, when they get a negative reaction, which they're going to get each and every time. It's easy to understand that that's going to occur. In other words, it's what event's going to happen and you're going to get a response. And that's going to be the response is going to be like that. So a strategic implementation plan that involves upskilling employees rather than phasing them out could enhance worker morale and public support, ultimately leading to a more successful AI integration. So common sense stuff, but it seems to be missing out there in terms of CEOs and other business leaders that are implementing this technology. And typically it's because they're not technologists. In other words, they don't know much about AI and what it can do and also what it can't do and what the opportunities are and also what the opportunities aren't are, and immediately jump in front of the parade and ultimately not putting a lot of strategic thinking around how that's going to make this happen. This technology is transformative. And so businesses who adopt it should consider it that way. But also, when you do it, it needs a tremendous amount of planning. It's easy to screw this stuff up unless you know exactly what you're doing. And, as I'm out there consulting with companies, I'm just seeing this over and over again. The questions I'm getting are very basic. And you can obviously tell that they're excited about the technology and the game-changing nature that it can bring to their business. And in many instances, that's going to be the case. But don't understand the planning aspect about it. Don't understand the resources that are needed. And don't understand the human side of this, both their employees and the customer side. They don't understand when customers leave, well, we're implementing AI. That should make things better for them, right? It's going to make things cheaper. No, not if they're focused on the quality of product. And also, if they're still looking for that human component to how they're going to leverage a product or a service. And I think many people are doing that out there and they're going to continue to do it. And so if you don't understand that, you're not going to be successful with any technology inclusive of AI. One of my interesting topic, and we have more of these case studies that I'm seeing, I'm queued up, but we'll go through all of them and talk about what they did right and what they did wrong. In this case, there was a lot of wrong being done, and they felt the wrath of the market that came right back to them. And I think that's going to be the case with each one of these. So don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other videos on this channel. Also check out my InfoWorld Cloud Computing blog, my 100+ LinkedIn learning courses, of course, my generative AI architecture course out on Go Cloud Careers, and finally, my latest book, An Insider's Guide to Cloud Computing, find on Amazon. So until next week, stay very, very safe. Later.